Hello, everyone. My name is Stanley St. Rose, and today we're going to be talking about promiscuity, the promiscuous woman. And this is something that we all need to understand, something that we all need to focus on because I think modern society gets this wrong. I think a lot of people, a lot of influencers will talk about how, women will hit a wall, or women who are promiscuous, they will regret their promiscuity at some point. And a lot of chat heads will talk about this, but the Bible, it tackles this in a different way. The Bible does not tackle this in the way of the influencer, or in the way of the alpha man is talking about this in the social atmosphere of the Western world right now. The Bible tells us that we, men, it's a warning. It's a warning that the people of God, men, of course, should run away from the adulterous woman, from the promiscuous woman, because the promiscuous woman, the Bible is very clear about this. She is not regretting her decision. She is not living in despair. Several times, the Bible warns us that the adulterous woman, the promiscuous woman, it is a trap. It is a trap that the devil can use to have you tied up. I mean, think about Samson and Delilah. The Delilah was that promiscuous woman. She's not married to Samson. They're having a physical sexual relationship, and Samson literally his head is in her lap, and Delilah just had his her way with Samson. So you have to understand that an adulterous woman, a promiscuous woman, it is a trap. It is a trap that will get you your eyes gouged out, your purpose taken away, and you tied up, and just like Samson did. So the promiscuous woman, the adulterous woman, the sexual immoral, they can be traps for people of God, for men of God. And the Bible warns us again and again that we need to run away from these types of women, because it's not that they regret. I mean, they do not regret their promiscuity. They do not regret their sexual adventures. Think about Joseph in Potiphar's household. Joseph, he had a lot of power in Potiphar's, household. Potiphar's wife wanted to sleep with Joseph. Potiphar's wife wanted to make Joseph that the man on the side. Potiphar's wife wanted to make Joseph, while the husband's away, while Potiphar's away, Potiphar's wife was going to come into the scene, and sleep with Joseph when her husband's away, because the Bible tells us that Joseph was a very handsome man. Was he looked good, and she saw that he looked good, so she wanted to sleep with Joseph. She wanted to have an affair with Joseph. It was so, and the thing is, like in the story of Joseph, this is so intense that she literally put her hands on Joseph. She put her hands on Joseph. She was aggressive to the point where when Joseph was trying to get out of her presence, when Joseph was trying to escape her presence, his coat came off in her hands. This woman had the clamps on Joseph. She really wanted to sleep with him, and there was nothing that was going to stop her. He literally had to run out of the room to get away from Potiphar's wife. And when she saw that she couldn't sleep with Joseph and she had the coat in her hand, Potiphar's wife, what did she do? She claimed that Joseph tried to rape her. Because in the story it tells us that she tells her husband, she tells the servant of the household that she screamed. She screamed because Joseph tried to come on to her, and this jacket proves it, that he was getting aggressive, and that he was trying to rape her. And so the Bible really tells us that a man who falls for this, like the adulteress, the woman that loves her promiscuity, she'll have a tongue that her mouth is like honey, her lips drip like honey. And we have to really pay attention to this, because a lot of, in the modern society, in the social climate of the dating world right now, one thing that society tells us is that You should be free and have all the fun you want. And some people will say that, young women, late teens throughout their 20s and perhaps even early 30s, they'll date around, or they'll be very promiscuous, and they'll sleep with a lot of people, and then at some point they'll regret it. It's not the case. It's not the case. Some women will live in their promiscuity for as long as they want throughout their 30s and 40s and 50s. They won't get married, and they don't want to get married. And it is a trap. It is a trap. And the thing is that you have to understand that our existence, our lives, we are called by God. We are created by God for a multitude of things. Every human being, every single person is fearfully and wonderfully made. The things that God has planned for you and for you to do, it is mind-boggling. Yes, people are supposed to be in relationships, get married, find someone you love, that you're deeply in love with, build a family. These are all wonderful things. But God didn't just create us to have careers and get married and have children. Those are three great, amazing things. But life is so much more than that. There's so much wonderfulness and extraordinary things that God has for each and every single child of His. When I think about the life of David, David was a musician, a king. He wrote the Psalms. He was a soldier. He was a leader. I mean, the things that David could do, he was a shepherd. I mean, the things that he could do and the talents that he had were mind-boggling. And so women, yes, women's are it's wonderful, fearfully, wonderfully made. Eve was fearfully and wonderfully made. Marriage, relationships, romantic relationships, they're all important. Children are all important. Careers are all important. But there's so many things that God has planned for every single person. It is a waste if you spend your entire life just chasing after one thing. And the thing is that when men follow their calling, when they're walking in purpose and they're seeking God and they're seeking God's face, the things that God has planned for you and the things that He has you do, they're extraordinary. And the things that you can limit yourself, because a lot of modern society, when you look at television, series, TV shows, movies, music, most men will talk about music and money and women and just like three things, kind of like it's on repeat, money, women, fame, and there's more than three, drugs and having a good time and all these types of things. But the thing is, they make life so limited, like these few things that involve with money and fame and fortune, this is all that life is about. No, life is there's so much complexity, there's so much awe in life that we as humans can explore, can experience, can do. So many inventions to create, so many things to explore within the world. And the earth is so vast, and it's just crazy to me that you would limit your life to just three things, career, women, and children. Again, these are wonderful things. Relationships are wonderful things. But there are some men who get trapped in the viewpoint of the adulteress, in the promiscuity of a woman. And the thing is that some men will think that having a lot of women, that is the utmost thing you can accomplish in life. um, and the thing is that, well, that's just simply not the case, because in life, in terms of business, in terms of changing people's lives, in terms of creating things, in terms of revolutionizing the world, in terms of inventing, I mean, there's so much things that can give your life meaning, and there's so much ways you can change the reality of life on earth. It's really a shame to see people waste their calling and waste their purpose and waste the things that God has planned for them. It's really it's something that makes me think a lot. Now, the promiscuous woman, the a woman who practiced promiscuity, I can assure you that some men will say, especially the alpha men in the world today, they'll say, she's gonna reach a place where she doesn't have any men. She's going. That's not. The Bible doesn't say that the adulteress is going to reach a place where, she doesn't have any men. It's honestly, it's when she reaches destruction. It's honestly when she has no other suitors. So long as a woman has suitors, she'll continue to be promiscuous. When we look at the story of Hosea, we look at prophet Hosea and his life with Gomer, and how Gomer was just chasing and chasing after her lovers. She chased her lovers until she had no lovers. Women who are promiscuous, they absolutely love it. If they've mastered promiscuity, they'll have several men at their beck and call. They can be quite dangerous. They can use their power, or their sexual their sexual abilities to get men to do whatever they want. I mean, think about um, John the Baptist and Herod. Herod is sleeping with this woman that's not his wife, that's his brother's wife. He takes her, and it's adultery. It's wrong. And John the Baptist, a man of God, stands up and says, this is wrong. And what does she do? She has his head on a platter. Her daughter dances for Herod. Herod's like, I'll give you half the kingdom. I mean, think about that. Think about how powerful sex is. Because this woman's daughter, she dances, and you could probably imagine this dance was a really elaborate, probably very sexual, very visually pleasing. Maybe Herod was lusting after this girl. This was it's just an amazing dance. The dance was so amazing that Herod was like, I'll give you up to half my kingdom. I mean, think about that, how powerful sex is. And so this happens, and then the girl's mother says, I want John the Baptist's head on a platter. And so, because of this woman using sex, using her ability to control sex, and the control she had on Herod, she got this man's head, this man of God's head, on a platter. I mean, that is completely, it shakes me to my core. This is why the Bible really again and again tells us to beware of the adulterer, be aware of the woman that practices promiscuity, be aware. I mean, there's several warnings in the Bible when God tells Solomon, listen, don't go after many wives, don't go after foreign wives, because if you marry these women, of course you're going to sleep with them, of course you're going to connect with them, and again, I mean, even Paul talks about this. He says a man who gets married to a woman, you want to please your wife, you want to satisfy your wife, you want to please her emotionally, physically, any which way that you want. Or that she wants. And Solomon, because he had 700 wives and 300 concubines, you could imagine he wanted to please all these women, and these women wanted to worship their false gods. And so he made concessions here and there to keep them happy. And the thing is that even though he was a very wise man, once you start making concessions for the women that you're sleeping with, for the women that you're entangled with, you stop walking in your purpose. And that's exactly what happened to Solomon, because he was following these women. He was losing sight of God, and he was losing sight of his purpose and what God has raised him up for, and who God was with him. I mean, God appeared on to Solomon in a dream, and he spoke to him, and Solomon asked for wisdom. I mean, God was willing and close, wanted to have a close relationship with Solomon, but Solomon wanted the women. And you have to understand, God did create women. Adam was lonely and alone, and God created women. And he said, one man, one woman, because that's pretty much what you can handle. That's pretty much what every single man can handle. And some man will be like, no, I can handle more than one woman, and I could be promiscuous as much as I want. You might tell yourself that, but it's simply not true, because you have two women, and I'm telling you, it's going to be a cat fight, because feelings and emotions are very tender, they're very sensitive. If one woman feels like she's not being loved like another, it's a cat fight. And this is why God says it's wrong, it's immoral, it's not right. Because, I mean, look at the story of Jacob and Leah and Rachel. These two sisters absolutely hated each other. Jacob hated Leah, he did not love her. He only loved Rachel. And that the Bible makes that very clear, that because of this love, well, it's not really a love triangle. Jacob was married to Leah by trickery, and well, he had children with her because, well, he was married to her. But his true love, the woman he couldn't live without, was Rachel. And so this created a rift. This was not good at all. And so the promiscuous woman, or promiscuity, or having multiple partners, it is very deadly. There's lots of power in sex, to control people, to manipulate people. And the promiscuous woman, she does not regret it. She can use her ability, her sexual abilities, her sexual gifts, to control men, to lead men astray, to lead men away from their calling, to lead men away from God. And again, there's one thing that's very interesting in the Old Testament. A lot of times when God would ask, or when God would say, okay, we're gonna have a fast or a prayer of time and worship, He will say, to abstain from sex. He will say that, and you can see that within the Old Testament, because when a man is attached to his wife, he's lost within his wife. He's lost within his woman, and his soul is, or his flesh, won't allow him to focus on the things of God. Um, so it's a very powerful thing, and it's a thing that, even in the modern day, we can see how Satan is using it in modern media, in pornography, in social media, and on Instagram, on all these platforms, to keep men, to keep women trapped in pretty much feeding the flesh. Because the more sex you see, the more explicit photos you see, the more you wanna please that hedonistic side of yourself, and the more you wanna look away from God. So promiscuity is one of those things that, men will always say, women will reach a point where, they have no options, or they have no suitors. So long as there's men, there will always be women who are promiscuous. And you have to really keep this in mind, that a lot of promiscuous women, they do not regret it. They do not look, as long as they can get the men that they want, as long as they can keep using their abilities to get what they want, they do not regret it. The Bible tells us, that's why the Bible keeps telling us, avoid them. Do not try to confront them, but avoid it. Avoid it. Walk away from these sexual advances. Walk away from the promiscuous woman, because you cannot win. The Bible tells us it is a trap that leads you to destruction. It is a trap. A lot of romantic relationships or sexual relationships, a lot of times they leave men, in horrible relationships, in horrible ways, to start to bring in children to the world, because you're one man and you have several baby mamas, or you have several different women, and then you have children with them. And now your life is entangled with, because as soon as you have children with someone, you're tied with them, for your entire life, because you have to take care of that child. You have to keep in touch with the mother of the child. And if you have multiple women that you have children with, well, then, if you're one man and you have children with three different types of women, now you have to keep in touch with all three women, support these children. And your life is now, you can't move, you can't focus on anything else, because now you have three kids, or however many kids, with these women. And they're tied to you for life, because even when the child is 18 and you don't have to pay child support, or do anything like that anymore, well, you're still tied with these women, and your life becomes a jigsaw puzzle. It's just a mess, and different types of pieces. And God wants us to have peace. He wants us to walk in peace. A lot of times, people, when they're not focusing on God, and they're focusing on the matters of the flesh and the lust of the flesh, well, you get entangled with a promiscuous woman, and just like Hosea, life was not easy for him. He marries Gomer. Gomer loves a lot of other men, and she keeps running away from Hosea, and they have children together. But, imagine it from his perspective. He marries this woman, he's trying to love her, but she keeps running to other men. And again, our emotions, our feelings, our hearts, God knows about all these things. And in your romantic relationships, you can find people that stab you in your heart so many times that you can't love anymore. Your heart becomes like a rock. If you're, especially for women, because women, when they fall in love, they truly fall in love. And of course, if you get stabbed in your heart by a sample size of men enough times, it's gonna hurt. And the more you get stabbed, the more bitter you become, and the more you can't trust the next man that comes along that wants to love you. So it's very, promiscuity causes so much type of pain, emotional pain, physical pain, and a lot of times it goes into your self-esteem. But there's a lot of young women that are promiscuous, and they do not mind it. They do not regret it. And until, um, well, honestly, within Gomer, she didn't return back until God got into it. I mean, the whole story of Hosea and Gomer is God talking about Israel and how Israel had prostituted herself to foreign gods. In many ways, a lot of women are promiscuous, and they'll prostitute themselves, and they'll have multiple partners and forget about monogamy. And these things, they hurt themselves, and their loved ones. Because ultimately, in the end, what promiscuity brings about is utter loneliness. Because promiscuity, for men, for both women, sleeping with a lot of people, you get, your pleasure in your flesh, your euphoria, you get the physical pleasure. But the thing is, what you have to understand is that after a while, it becomes meaningless. You get your physical pleasure, but you're not loved, because the people that you sleep with, what ultimately happens, they forget about you. You sleep with somebody, and then a couple days later, a couple months later, they forget about you. If you died, they wouldn't care. That's the thing with indulging in the flesh. When someone truly loves you, they will protect you no matter what. They will care about what you care about. They will care about your future, everything that you're doing. That is true love, when someone cares about you enough to think about your well-being, your affairs, your future goals and dreams, your emotions, your inner thoughts. But for most promiscuous women and men, well, it's only about the flesh. And the thing is, like, once you're done pleasing the flesh, the person, the true being, no one, the people that you sleep with, they do not care about that. So promiscuity is one of the most deadliest thing. Yeah, sex is a very powerful thing within the spiritual world, and within the physical world. We have to be careful with it. If you find a woman that's promiscuous, you run, because first of all, it takes you away from your calling. Second of all, when you focus on them, they bring you down to destruction. Um, this is why the Bible calls for monogamy. This is why the Bible says to get married to one woman, and for the woman, one man, and have a family, and have that oneness. Because once you have multiple different types of partners, I mean, the modern society tells men that, it's cool, you're great for sleeping with as many women as you can, but you might have those high numbers. But again, it's all in the flesh. You please the flesh, but your inner being, your person, your who you are, your self-worth, you're just throwing all of that out. Because ultimately, in the end, you can sleep with a lot of people, but you don't know them as a person. You know their body, but you don't know them as a person. So the promiscuous woman, she does not regret her life, her situation. We see this several times within the Bible. Potiphar's wife, she just wanted a man on the side. Um, Delilah, she literally sold Samson, this man that she was sleeping with, just for money, for pieces of money. Um, Promiscuous women, they will get their fun. They'll have their fun when they want to. They'll get their money when they want to. And if you have to go under the bus for them to get what they want, they will give you under the bus. I mean, Potiphar's wife, she wanted to sleep with Joseph. She couldn't get it, so she threw him under the bus. She said, he tried to rape me. Delilah, she was having fun with Samson, but as soon as times got tough and the money came in, well, she gave Samson away for some money. And so the adulterous woman, the promiscuous woman, the woman who is seeking after pleasure in the modern day within the Bible, she is only looking out for herself. She is pleasure seeking. She's about I. She's only looking out for herself. And she does not regret her choices, because ultimately, in the end, I mean, Delilah got her money. Delilah got her sex. She got her money. Potiphar's wife, she couldn't get her sex, but she made sure that Joseph couldn't speak against her or accuse her. She got him sent and thrown into the jail. So if you can't do what she wants, she throws you out. And this is something we have to really be careful with, because the Bible warns us a lot. The adulterous woman, the promiscuous woman, run, run.